Welcome to Soccer Morning on World Soccer Talk. Here's your host, Jason Davis.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday. What day is it? It's Hump Day. We are live, Soccer Morning, worldsoccertalk.com. By the way, worldsoccertalk.com. Doing some cool stuff. If you didn't know, in addition to Soccer Morning, there's another podcast, another show on World Soccer Talk. Last night's guest over at that show, Max Bretos. I'm a little jealous. I would love to get Max Bretos on this show. I didn't get a chance to listen. I hope he did his goal call. It's been a while since we've heard Max Bretos do his goal call. Occasionally he gets to anchor some ESPN coverage now that he's a Sports Center guy. That's good to see. Big Wednesday edition of the program for you. We're going to talk both Italian calcio with our friend David Emoyel from Gianluca DiMarzio, and a little Orlando City Soccer Club with Paul Tenorio from the Orlando Sentinel. Those things are coming up very, very shortly. I've got headlines to give you. First, though, a couple of reminders. Number one, please listen to the SiriusXM FC 94 show every day at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern. We're heading into day 3 of that program. It's a learning process for me. It's a different thing. It's not quite the same production, if you can imagine, but I think it's going pretty well. And I would love to have our web show regulars call in to SiriusXM FC. Maybe it would make me feel better. I would feel comfortable. We're buddies. This is our thing. We're friends. Love to have our friends call in. I think Washington called in yesterday. Shirt number 5, Washington from New York. Hashtag Soccer Pals. Hey, pal. Call in, pal. Let's talk a little soccer. Also, a reminder that if you are in the general New York City metropolitan area, you should be at Legend/Football Factory, whatever they call it, on Friday night. What time are we starting that thing? What time is that thing starting? 8 o'clock? I believe it's starting around 8 o'clock-ish. 7 o'clock-ish. Whenever people show up, I'm going to get in a car on Friday afternoon as soon as the SiriusXM show is done and drive to New York City from here. So that'll be fun. Maybe I can Periscope my trip. I don't know anything about Periscope. Sounds interesting. Maybe I could Periscope my drive from Virginia to New York City, and then trying to find a parking space in New York City, and then getting into the restaurant, the bar, to watch some soccer. There's a couple of games that night, Friday night. MLS action. So come out, meet me, meet producer Trevor. I believe some soccer luminaries will be in attendance. We'll see who shows up. I'm excited. Shake my hand, have a beer, talk some soccer. Be great. Be fantastic. Very much looking forward to that. I'm not looking forward to the drive, and I'm not looking forward to driving back, but I am looking forward to being there in New York, talking to our fans. So again, if you live in Maine, you should be making it down, don't you think? I don't know if we have any listeners in Maine. If you live in Western Pennsylvania, you still have no excuses in my mind. If you live in D.C., you want a carpool? Do you want a carpool? Let's go. Let's ride share up to New York. All right, let's hit the headlines ahead of David Emoyel here. The Juventus has beaten Real Madrid 2-1 in the first leg of the UEFA Champions League semifinals. Carlos Tevez, star of the show. Question will be, and I'll ask this of David Emoyel when we get him on the program, whether or not that away goal for Real Madrid is a dagger for Juventus. Going back to the Bernabeu, they'll have to hold on to that one goal lead, but they played well. They deserve to win that match, so good on Juventus for taking care of Real Madrid. Lots of talk today about the lack of contribution from Gareth Bale. Obviously, Cristiano Ronaldo, goal scorer, it's what he does. So he keeps them in the tie. Although you might still have Real Madrid with a decent shot down 2-0 going back to the Bernabeu, but here they are with an away goal. Again, if you're going to lose close and score. As for the penalty that Tevez earned / and then put away, I don't have a problem with that call. I don't know if that's really a controversy today. I feel like every penalty has to be dissected. So that's it looked like a penalty to me. I'm not sure really what the complaint was. Now you have Barcelona Bayern Munich today. Very much looking forward to that match as well. Camp Nou, Lionel Messi and company taking on the German Giants. Should be a fascinating match. Pep Guardiola returning to Barcelona as the manager of another club, both of them with designs of winning the Champions League this year. Interesting stuff here from Emmanuel Adebayor. Tottenham striker Emmanuel Adebayor wrote a Facebook post, 877 words, outlining all of the things he's purchased for his family during his professional career, saying he wanted other families to learn from what he had experienced. Quote, I have kept these stories for a long time, but I think today it is worth sharing some of them with you. It's true that family matters should be solved internally and not in public, but I am doing this so that hopefully all families can learn from what happened in mine. None of this is about money, he said. So essentially, he's outlining all of the things he did for his family, shaming them publicly, and then saying it's not about money. I'm not sure what's going on here. I understand that professional athletes, especially those making good money, can be victimized by family and friends who just have their hands out. I think there's an entire show. This is about, well, that's a music industry thing, but isn't there an entire show built around the notion of family taking advantage of like a rap star or something? Isn't that what Empire is about? Because I haven't watched Empire. That's a hole in my pop culture knowledge. In England, also Newcastle United owner Mike Ashley, his company, Sports Direct, has been raided as part of an ongoing investigation relating to Rangers, which Mike Ashley has expressed interest in purchasing. We can confirm that officers carried out a search of a property in Derbyshire, said Scottish police. As part of this, as this is part of a live inquiry, it would be inappropriate to comment further. The police investigation is not directed at Sports Direct or any of its directors or employees. The police were seeking documentation which might assist an investigation into Glasgow Rangers FC. I'm not sure what's going on here, but Rangers can't get out of their own way. I'm not sure Mike Ashley's the guy you want involved with your team. Last night in Houston, San Jose beat Houston Dynamo 1-0 at BBVA Compass Stadium. Adam John with his first MLS goal in nearly 2 years. I think he's like 3 days shy of 2 years. A decent set piece. A training ground set piece routine from San Jose that just caught Houston flat-footed. Not a good showing from the Dynamo. We're going to talk to Daryl Lovell over on the Sirius XM show and get his insight into what's going on under Owen Coyle with the Houston Dynamo. Interesting rumors this morning of Americans potentially moving to MLS. Will Packwood, Sebastian Leckett, Jonathan Spector, all rumored to possibly be heading this way. Jonathan Spector considering a contract offer. Leckett, who's never been really able to break into the first team at West Ham, linked to the LA Galaxy. I'm not sure how legit that is. We'll have to look further into it. And Packwood could be headed to the New England Revolution. That creates a bit of a logjam back there if you have everybody healthy, but right now the Revs do not. So what happens to Jose Gonçalves? How do you make sure Aaron Drew Farrell's on the field? And also in New England, Lee Wynn in a contract dispute with the New England Revolution. I was reading this article at New England Soccer Today, nesoccertoday.com. Apparently, Lee Wynn sat out training, which is why he did not start on the weekend for the New England Revolution. This is an interesting situation. He's making $175,000 this year. He certainly deserves more. MVP candidate last year. Very good player, very important to the New England Revolution. But he just signed that new contract before the season last year, and the Revs do not want to renegotiate. We'll have to watch this situation. When we come back, David Amoyal from JohnLucaDiMarzio.com will join us to talk some Serie A, Italian football. Don't go anywhere. Be right back.
Face in the crowd, you're talking too loud, but I can't hear you calling.
Welcome back to Soccer Morning on World Soccer Talk with Jason Davis.
Here we are back on Soccer Morning, joined now on the telephone by David Amoyal from Gianluca D'Amarzio. Talk a little Italian soccer, some rumors perhaps percolating out there in the football world. Some of them perhaps related to MLS, so we'll get to that. David, how are you?
It's great to be on, Jason. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you back. Let's start with the big story in Italy yesterday. Juventus hosting Real Madrid. First leg of the Champions League semifinals. A 2-1 victory for Juventus. Tevez starring, Andrea Pirlo playing very well. But I think my first question for you is whether or not that away goal is going to come back and haunt Juventus as they go back for the return leg in Spain.
It certainly could. And you look at the lineup that Allegri used at the beginning of the match. He made a surprise move. He inserted defensive midfielder Sturaro, who had just joined the club in January. Many expected Pereira to start, replacing Pogba, and Pereira is more of an offensive player. So when I saw Sturaro starting, I assumed Allegri's main goal was to not concede that away goal. So I think, overall, Juve has to be pretty happy with the result. Juve has a reputation for not being a good club in the Champions League, and just the fact that they beat the defending champions, says a lot. But of course, 1-0 would have been a better result than 2-1. But you look at how Juve performed when they played in Dortmund, and, granted Real Madrid is better, but I think Juve has a decent chance to go through. So all things considered, I think they have to be pretty happy with the result.
Yeah, sure. Of course, you take a lead back to Madrid, and you can be happy with that situation. Now, just give me some thoughts when you watch that match on, again, Carlos Tevez and his influence on Juventus. Yep. How he is a busy player. He doesn't stop running. He doesn't stop. His effort is world class, but he also, he's just a winner. I don't know how else to describe Carlos Tevez. He's a pit bull of a striker. Give me a sense of how important he was yesterday. Obviously, scoring, winning a penalty, all of that.
A tremendous player. I think, there's always a lot of talk at Juve on Vidal, Pogba, because they're usually, tied to so many transfer rumors. But I've said all along the most difficult player to replace at Juve is going to be Tevez whenever that happens. I think he's been absolutely sensational for them. It's interesting that you describe him as a winner. I totally agree. But you look back at when he arrived at the club, he had this reputation for being a cancer in the locker room. There were rumors that he was overweight and that he was coming to Italy to kind of cash a last big check. And he's been the exact opposite of that. I think, he absolutely defines like the Juve spirit. Juve historically, they've had a lot of great players, but they also have hardworking players, even top players like Nedved, who won a Ballon d'Or and was hardworking. And I think Tevez fits in completely into that aspect. I thought he was tremendous yesterday. I think Juve overall played really well. I think Allegri really deserves a lot of credit. I think, he outcoached Ancelotti yesterday, in my opinion. I think Juve was very compact, organized. They really never gave Real Madrid a chance for their deadly counterattacks. And that also is due to the work of Tevez and Morata. I think both those guys worked really hard, and they got rewarded with goals. So I think great performance, especially for Tevez, for sure.
How about a little chat on everyone's favorite man crush, Andrea Pirlo, and what again for when he was injured, Juventus is a different team. I mean, his influence is obviously it stands out for everyone there. But give me a sense of the difference between a Juventus without Pirlo and with Pirlo, and how important he is to something like a Champions League run.
It's a fascinating scenario with Pirlo. Now, there's a lot of people that would say, Pirlo in the Champions League, doesn't have the pace, and for him to be successful, Juve has to use a 3-5-2 formation, so he has two midfielders in the middle surrounding him to kind of make up for his lack of pace. But then you look at the statistics at halftime, and I think even at the end of the match, it was one of the players that had run the most in the match. And, granted, there are some times where he makes mistakes. Even in the first half, he had like a boneheaded pass, and then Bonucci got a yellow card on. But then he makes up for it in so many other ways. You look to the previous round against Monaco, he didn't play particularly well, but he had the one stroke of genius that got the penalty for Juve with that superb pass. So the thing with him, and he's just a game changer. and the other club has to always account for him. Like Bale yesterday, was in charge of man marking him, and that took him almost out of the game offensively. So he's just a huge presence on the pitch. I think, too, when you have players like Buffon and Pirlo, it's not just what they bring to the game, it's also the confidence that they give their teammates having around them. Think of like a player like Sturaro, who was first big Champions League game. He was playing for Genoa up until, a few months ago. And, he's playing in the midfield with Pirlo, and I think that just gives you so much confidence that the contributions of players like that go beyond what you just see on the pitch.
Yeah, absolutely. Pirlo is one of those players who just emanates a sense that he's the calm eye of the storm. I mean, he's the guy that he's not going to be rattled. He may make a mistake, as you said, but he's not going to look like that moment is bigger than him. So clearly Juventus with a win that they'll take back to Spain and a chance to advance to a Champions League final. And quickly here, David, how important to Italian football and Serie A would Juventus reaching the final be? And I think I saw recently that right now in terms of this season, Italy is leading the coefficients.
Correct. Yeah. As of yesterday and after the results from yesterday, that can change, of course. Spain's right behind them if Real Madrid eliminates Juve, which, I would have to say that probably the most likely result, but Juve has a chance. But yeah, it's a tremendous help for Italian football. I think, losing that fourth Champions League team really hurt Italian soccer. But now that they added that the Europa League, the winner goes straight to the Champions League, it's no surprise to me that the Italian clubs are trying much harder. And I think Napoli has a pretty good chance of winning the whole thing. I would say they are the favorites. But I think, Juve's run is definitely really, really good for Italian football. I mean, just this year, the Champions League matches, Juve has made over 14 million euros, just a gate receipt. And that really helps, not just Juve, but even Italian football. And I think, too, the reputation for Italian football being so boring and uninteresting, I think Juve put in a great performance yesterday. So even just the stigma of the Italian way of playing soccer is kind of changing thanks to them.
Now, obviously, the stereotypes are hard for some people to shake, David. I don't know if you were, if you partook of the English broadcasters' call of that match, but it is consistent that, what do Italians do? They defend well, and that's is there a chance here for Juventus? And obviously, there is an international flavor to their team, but is there a sense that Juventus kind of is going to fly the flag of, hey, the new Italian football isn't necessarily dour Catenaccio anymore?
I think so. I think, the only problem for that is that right now, there's not a great generation of Italian players, I would say. We're looking at guys like Totti, Di Natale, and Baggio replacing them. And, other than Balotelli, there's really no signature striker, and even he's really struggling coming up. So I think that might hurt a little bit, that stigma. But as long as the Italian teams, have good foreign attackers, they can kind of make up for that. Juve, of course, has Tevez and Morata. They might be adding Dybala soon, another foreign player. So I think at the club level, it can help that. It'd be really great if Italy could develop, a transcendent striker that can help the Italian national team soon. But I think beyond that, I think Italian football is, on the uprise in general, and even playing a more interesting style. Even you look at a lot of Serie A matches, there's a lot more goals than there used to be. And I think that certainly helps, the interest abroad in the product.
Now, I would, we could get into a discussion about Juventus's dominance of Serie A and whether or not that's good going forward and who can step up. Obviously, Roma is trying very hard and has yet to reach that level where they can challenge Juventus for titles. But I'm going to move on. I think that was a much longer discussion. Let's get to some of the rumors and some of the speculation about transfers. You mentioned Dybala, the Argentine from Palermo. Lots of clubs rumored to be targeting him. Where do you ultimately see him going? Who do you think is the leading candidate right now?
Well, it's a fascinating scenario with him. I think, one of the big factors is he just has 1 year left on his deal. Palermo had tried to extend it so they could have more leverage in saying where he would go next. Now, when you have just 1 year left on your contract, if a team you're really not interested in signing with, he would have some leverage in turning that down, because then he could just turn around and sign with another team for free early next year. His agent, and he keeps saying how much he wants to stay in Italy. Granted, he's very young still. We've seen younger players leave Italy, like Lamela, and struggled in the Premier League. So I don't know if that's really truthful or it's just a negotiation ploy that he's saying that. Right now, I would say, Juve is trying very hard to close the deal. They would love to have him on the club 1 year with Tevez before he returns to Argentina to learn from him. But they also have never made like an offer of more than 20 million for a single player. So now it seems they are upping the ante to sign him. But, a lot can change. Palermo's president, is adamant about wanting to get more money. And, if he wants over 30 million, odds are that would be abroad. So it'll be fascinating to see if Dybala is very serious about staying in Italy. Assuming that's true, I would say Juve is the odds-on favorite.
Yeah, if that's true. I mean, the two English clubs most often mentioned when I search Dybala's name are Chelsea and Arsenal. Do you have an opinion on whether or not that's a good? I mean, beyond just England and the culture shock and making that move, and you mentioned Lamela, whether or not either one of those teams is ultimately a good fit for him.
Well, I can tell you, Dybala has said that if it was England, Arsenal would make sense for him because they have such a good track record of playing young players, and I think he really wants an opportunity to play. And I know someone who's very close. Palermo and Dybala, and months ago we were talking, and he always said, Arsenal was really a logical place for him. Now, Arsenal too doesn't like to get into bidding wars, and they might have been a little bit scared off by Dybala's statements about staying in Italy. But to me, they would make a lot of sense as well. I will say right now, I don't get the sense they have a lot of momentum for him. I know Chelsea and Man United have also scouted him, but I think they're kind of waiting to see if Juve can close the deal or not. I think, the other clubs are kind of trying to see if to call Dybala's bluff about wanting to stay in Italy or not. But if, say, that doesn't happen, I could see Arsenal or Chelsea or United having a good chance. But I would say Dybala is probably more interested in Arsenal, everything else being equal.
Now on to Paul Pogba, still nursing an injury, wasn't able to play in the Champions League final, or Champions League semifinals, or the first leg anyway. His name is all over the place. It's the richest clubs in the world lining up for Paul Pogba. It seems like at this point, Liverpool, Manchester United. Well, maybe not Liverpool, but certainly PSG has been rumored. Where is the target honing in on Pogba? Who's got the inside track there?
Well, it's really a great race for him right now. I mean, the new developments is, PSG has really been putting a lot of pressure to sign him. I would say of all the clubs, they're the ones that have taken the most concrete action to sign him. Now, their CEO, President Al-Khaffari, met with him in Monte Carlo, and Juve was aware of that meeting. And that really is very significant if you think about it. That tells me that Juve is somewhat open to a sale, although publicly they're saying they're not, and Pogba, meeting with him says a lot. And Pogba's agent is Mino Raiola, who has a great relationship with PSG. He brought Ibrahimovic there, and he works with them a lot. So it makes a lot of sense. And last night, Di Marzio reported that PSG made him an offer to triple his salary, what he makes at Juve, but at the moment, Pogba isn't accepting that offer. And then, of course, there's Real Madrid, who I always felt all along was the team that made the most sense because, too, they have a great relationship with Juve. The two clubs really get along. Even the Morata deal kind of proves it. And Zidane was recently in Turin. He used to play for Juve, and now he works for Real Madrid. And he's kind of trying to help lead the way to sign Pogba. But I will say one thing that I think is very underestimated with Pogba is the fact that he's only 22 and the Euro is going to be in France next year. He may just want to stay at a club where he's comfortable to get ready for the Euro. The fact that he turned down that big offer for PSG might be because of that. So, it's a fascinating race. I think, Pogba's young age is a factor that needs to be remembered when a lot of people say, well, why would he go to PSG? Why wouldn't he go to another league, to a better league? It's like, well, he's also very young. He might just want to be in a place where he's comfortable for now before he makes the big jump. Absolutely. But I think we're going to see a lot of news on him soon.
Yeah, those elements come into play, and I think people they make snap judgments about the level of the player and the level of the team, and et cetera, et cetera. There are a lot of things that go into a decision. And speaking to that, Gianluca DiMarzio and you, David, were ahead of everything when it came to Jovinko moving to Toronto this winter, and even canceling his contract with Juve so he could get to Toronto early. You may have some other news on potential movement when it comes to Italian football and TFC.
Absolutely. This is a very interesting story. Now, a couple of weeks ago, someone that I trust very much within Toronto, contacted me to tell me, the club's really looking in Italy at all levels, for a new president, a new coach, and more players. It's something that I was able to confirm in Italy as well, that there is definitely some truth to that. And shortly after, we saw Toronto FC's general manager Bezbatchenko, travel to Italy to watch 2 games, one in the lower division, the second division, and actually a Parma game. And it's no surprise that today, Parma, one of their strikers, Belfodil, who used to be a pretty highly rated prospect, is going to rescind his contract with the club. They're going bankrupt. A lot of other players have done so already. And Toronto is a potential destination for him. And the obvious link is he has the same agent as Jovinko, Andrea D'Amico, who has a great relationship with Toronto. And the fact that Toronto's general manager was scouting Parma not long ago, leads me to believe that it's certainly a possibility. Now, I know there's a lot of talk, about designated players and salaries. And keep in mind, though, Parma players haven't been paid in months because the club's going bankrupt. So I don't think players would necessarily want to be a designated player to move there.
Right.
So that would make sense. And the other player that's been linked to Toronto is Aquilani, who's a midfielder who played for Italy not long ago. And he recently switched agents, and he went with Jovinko's agent as well. He, for years, had another agent, and I think he's definitely open to a move to the U.S. Might not necessarily be Toronto, but the fact that he went with D'Amico and didn't want to extend his contract with Fiorentina, I think we could see him in MLS very soon.
Very interesting stuff. I have to check in on Toronto's cap situation and all of those things to see how you fit a player like that into their team. And obviously Aquilani, that's an interesting rumor as well. Make sure you're following David on Twitter. It's David Amoyal, Amoyal. Fantastic insight on Italian football and obviously all of these transfer rumor links. David, appreciate the time. Enjoyed it as always. Talk to you soon, man.
Great. Thank you so much for having me on and always talking about Serie A, and good luck with your move to Sirius. I'm looking forward to hearing you there.
Appreciate it, David. Let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk to Paul Tenorio from the Orlando Sentinel. Stuff is happening in Orlando. Don't go anywhere. Be right back.
Welcome back to Soccer Morning on World Soccer Talk with Jason Davis.
We are back, and on the phone line with me now, from lovely Orlando, Florida, Mr. Paul Tenorio of the Orlando Sentinel, covers Orlando City Soccer Club and MLS for the newspaper. Paul, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well this morning. Thanks for having me on, guys.
How's the weather in Orlando? Is it hot yet?
It is, you know what? It is hot. It's actually nice this morning. It's kind of, I say cool relative to Orlando. It's getting kind of brutal here.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see, in a couple of weeks when they're playing games on that turf and it's at full force, what it's going to be like.
Yeah. I think an underrated part of the whole turf equation is that stuff radiates heat. It's not quite as well. It doesn't do quite as well with temperatures as natural grass does, and that may be a factor. It's going to be hot in Orlando anyway. So that, does the team at all talked about how the heat of the city and the heat of the region is going to impact how they play?
Oh, for sure. I think, first of all, they look at it as a home field advantage. I mean, they have to practice in it every morning, and it's actually more brutal when they're practicing in it than when they play. The temperatures, it's kind of weird in Orlando. The temperatures will go down at night, but the humidity goes way up at the same time. So that's the big challenge for game days. But talking to guys like Kyle Laren, a Canadian who went to college at UConn, through these practices, you see him coming off the field just dripping completely. It looks like he dumped a bucket of water on himself. And Seb Hines, who played at Middlesbrough all the way up in the northern parts of England, and they're like, is this what summer's like? And Tommy Redding, is a local kid's like, no, summer's way worse. We're not even there yet.
Not even close.
So we haven't even gotten to the worst of it, and they're trying to prepare themselves for it. There's not much preparation you can do, but it should be a home field advantage at some point in the summer.
Now, in addition to the heat of Florida, which again, can be an advantage for them, the things that Orlando City are dealing with right now, lots of not good stuff, and the leading candidate for the worst of the bunch is Kevin Molino's injury, out for the season. Now you've got to shuffle some pieces if you're Adrian Heath. What exactly do you expect Orlando City to do? Have we had any indication of where, say, Breck Shea might be playing?
Yeah, I think that the obvious answer is going to be on Friday night. They will move Breck Shea up to the left wing, and they will start Luke Bowden behind him at left back. Obviously, I think that when you lose a guy like Kevin Molino, he is, the goals haven't come yet this year, but he was still such an important attacking piece for them. What he was able to do on the ball, he demanded attention from any team that you played him. And I was texting with a couple of people from around the league who felt, other than Kaká, he was the best player on the field for Orlando City, and that they always felt they had to account for him in scouting reports. So to lose that type of impact on the field, you need to replace not just, the position, you need to replace that kind of respect that is set going into a game. You need somebody who's going to demand that kind of attention, and Breck Shea is the only person on the roster probably who can demand that same kind of attention. So now you move him up next to Kaká on the left wing. It'll probably be Eric Avila on the right wing, who's obviously not as dynamic of an offensive player, but is definitely very sturdy. And so I think you'll see now the field tilt the other direction than it has the first few weeks, because you'll have Breck running up and down that left wing, and Luke Bowden, by the way, a very, very good attacking player. They showed some great chemistry in the friendly on Saturday against Ponte Preta, so you'll see a lot of Luke Bowden getting up and overlapping Shea on the left wing. It should be fun to watch.
Now, what other factors are coming up for Orlando City when it comes to their roster depth? I mean, this is a team that already had some issues very early in the season, and we haven't even gotten to that summer period where international call-ups are going to be a problem.
Yeah, I mean, they're dealing with a ton of injuries that now really seem magnified. I mean, the natural answer at the beginning of the season, if you had told me you lose Kevin Molino, well, who do you slide in there? It's Tony Cassio, a like-for-like substitution on the right wing. He's out with a back problem that's day-to-day. It's a nerve issue, and you just can't put a time frame on that. Lewis Neal out with a similar injury, but to the neck. It's another nerve issue. Again, they have to wait and see. Martin Patterson, who's the forward that they wanted to start the season with, a veteran who scored goals in the championship, still out right now with a hamstring injury. They hope he's back at some point in this stretch of 3 games in 9 days, that he'll maybe make his debut somewhere in that stretch. And then Tally Hall working back from the ACL injury, and it looks like he's another guy who I think could actually see his first MLS action in the next week or so. So a lot of injury issues they're dealing with, and I think the under-20 World Cup call-ups are starting this week, and it sounds like Orlando City is going to try to hold on to its players as long as they possibly can. I think they have until the 16th before they have to release them. But then, you're losing Rafa Ramos on the right side, who's going to be gone with Portugal. You lose Connor Donovan probably to the U.S. team, somebody who provides a little depth at center back, which now, the backline depth is a little bit thinner now because you're starting Luke Bowden at left back and Breck Shea is already on the field. So those are your 2 left back options. And Tyler Turner now is starting on the right back because Ramos is gone. So you're stretched thin. So losing Connor Donovan hurts a bit. And Brian Rochez with Honduras will be gone as well. Somebody who hasn't seen a ton of minutes but scored on Saturday in the friendly. So they're going to be stretched a bit thin, and they're hoping to get healthy. And we'll see if they can add a piece before this May 12th window. But otherwise, I think they're really going to be stretched to the very, very limits of this roster.
It's interesting. One of the guys that's not going anywhere probably this summer is Kaká, and that's not necessarily a surprise, I suppose. Paul, he's sort of past the window for Brazil call-ups, or at least that's the perception. Although Robinho got a call-up, so who knows anymore. Is the club of the opinion? I mean, like they're going to want him to be there, especially with all of these other guys leaving and the injury problems. But at the same time, to have Kaká called up by Brazil while he's an Orlando City player, I don't know that you can get better PR than that.
Oh, for sure. Certainly from a marketing side of things, from a PR side of things, it would not hurt Orlando City to have its best player playing with Brazil. And in fact, he was called up this past fall when he was on loan with Sao Paulo. After Orlando City had bought him and loaned him out, he was called up for a pair of friendlies over in Asia. So he's been in Dunga's team recently, but it would have been a massive blow for them if they lose him in the summer. They're going to be losing Breck Shea. Obviously, Molino's out now. Kyle Larin is going to be gone. So they're losing guys. Darwin Saren's going to be gone for the Gold Cup. So they were already losing a lot of big pieces. So lose Kaká would have been huge, but. I agree with you. I think that, part of the reason why you invest $7 million a year in a guy like Kaká is for the international recognition that he can bring your club. And there's nothing bigger than saying, hey, we have a player who's playing for the Seleção, playing for Brazil. And I think that they would have, I think maybe the front office marketing side of things would have been happy, and Adrian Heath would have been pulling his hair out over at the coach's office.
Yes, a soccer club is multiple parts. It's not just one thing. Now, this is an expansion club, and we, those of us who have been around sports for a long time, know expansion teams don't do very well. The Seattle Sounders notwithstanding. And I know Orlando City had some goals coming into the year. I know there was a thought, okay, we were dominant in USL. We bring a couple of those guys. We signed a good roster. And everybody thought this was a good roster. At the same time, things have not gone well recently. And I'm not going to say that they can't make the playoffs, Paul, because 6 teams get in. But it's going to be a struggle. You think it's been harder than they expected, or this is about par for the course?
No, I think it's definitely been harder than they expected. I was speaking with Adrian Heath last night, actually, after his radio show. He was talking about Jason Kreis's comments after the last game, where Jason Kreis said, this is harder than what I expected it would be. The challenges of getting a roster together, getting the guys all settled in their new area. They're moving their families. They're enrolling their kids in schools. They're figuring out visa issues, which has been kind of a bigger deal for Orlando City than they expected it to be. All of that factors into the on-field play, and I think getting guys in sync, especially in the final third, I think that might be the biggest issue of all. I think we've seen NYCFC struggle a little bit in the final third. Yeah. Orlando City, certainly that's been its issue, is scoring goals. And I think, they need to kind of find those answers. And I think part of that is just chemistry, being together, understanding where guys are going to be, understanding the runs to make and when to make them. And, I think all of that has factored in. Now, I've tried to kind of temper what I'm saying here because, people are close to hitting the panic button that are watching Orlando City. And, if you look at a lot of the games before Columbus and Toronto, the last 2 games where they've really gotten beat up pretty good, Orlando City never looked out of its depth in the end of the game. any of the games. I thought they were the better team in every single game. Losses to Vancouver and DC United came in the final 30 seconds of injury time in games that Orlando City definitely deserved to take points out of. And you get even draws in those games, and the narrative's a bit different right now. But they didn't. And so they've lost 3 of their last 4, and they've been shut out in 2 straight, and everyone's freaking out. And now you've got New England, DC United, and Los Angeles Galaxy in an 8-day, 9-day span. Mm-hmm. Things don't get any easier. So you're right. I mean, it's going to be a really, really tough stretch for them. They need to get some points out of these next 3 games in order just to calm things down, keep people from panicking and keep even the players from continuing to kind of put this pressure on themselves and having that impact the on-field product as well.
Orlando hosting New England on Friday night. I'll be in New York for that game. Watch it with me at Football Factory in New York if you're in that area. Paul, the other element to Orlando City's current drama is the stadium, getting it built. There's suddenly this $30 million funding gap. Money that was set aside that should have been rubber stamped was not, and now the legislature has adjourned for the summer. Where do things stand, and how much of an impact does that funding gap have on the construction of Orlando City Stadium?
I mean, I think, honestly, there's a lot of big question marks looming over the stadium project right now. One of them is not whether the stadium is going to be built. That's happening no matter what. That's part of the deal to get the MLS team here. The $85 million is funded. It's there. The problem that Orlando City and the city of Orlando faces is that, look, this money has been set aside. It's in the budget. It was in the 2014 budget, and it was set to be appropriated to be given out, and that part didn't happen. And now it's kind of part of this political back and forth that's going on in the state legislature that really is hinging on the budget and on Medicaid funding, and they're kind of using it as a pawn in that game. And so Orlando is stuck sitting there and saying, okay, well, we have a couple options. One, do we reset, go back to those $85 million plans, finalize those plans, and move forward with an $85 million stadium? Do we hold things for a little while longer, hope that the special session that comes in June settles this issue and we get our money and we move forward from there? And now we're only, we can make up most of that time in overtime with construction. Or the option number 3, which is a possibility, is do we look at seeing if we can find another way to get that $30 million that maybe saves a little bit more time and lets us start moving forward with a plan as we have it now for a $110 million stadium, $115 million stadium. So, I think it all comes down to timing. I think the leaders right now are probably trying to decide, how much patience should we have with the state legislature, how much faith do we have that they're going to get this done, and how quickly do we want to move forward? I would assume that they'll move forward in the next 6 to 8 weeks, whether they get the funding from the state or try to find it somewhere else. That's just kind of getting my vibe from talking to people around the project.
Yeah.
And I think that they'll have a stadium open at some point next season. I just don't know, is it going to be soon enough that they play 3 games on the road and then open, or do they have to play, a few home games with the Citrus Bowl and then open up in June or July?
I think the first question for a lot of people, Paul, on a stadium like this, when you have, moneyed owners, guys with deep pockets, is why doesn't Flavio da Silva step up or Phil Rollins help out and just write a $30 million check? Why is it not that simple?
Well, I'll tell you, Phil Rollins would chuckle at that and say, "I'd like to be able to write a $30 million."
No, I realize that's why I mentioned Da Silva first. Yeah.
No, you're right. You're right. I think a lot of people do feel that way. Look, the team is putting forward $40 million for the stadium. I think that I think it's a valid question. The money that's set aside here from the state is actually an income tax break. So it's the way Phil Rollins at least frames it. It's more of a loan than it is straight money for the stadium, that the team would be responsible for paying back this $30 million over time, and that if they don't make up that money in the income tax generated, that the team itself would be responsible for paying back the $30 million. So, I don't know. I'm not saying that that's not an option. I don't know what they're considering as how to fill up get this extra $30 million to make the stadium as strong of a stadium as they'd like it to be. Maybe that is an option. Maybe they do go private funding. I don't know if that's been ruled out yet, but I think it's a valid question.
Paul Tenorio from the Orlando Sentinel talking Orlando City Soccer Club. Obviously, a lot of issues on the field and now a couple of issues off the field, but I expect these things will all be sorted out in due time. Paul, appreciate your time. Enjoy the break before it really gets hot, because it's going to get really hot.
I appreciate that. I'm not looking forward to the summer, but hopefully the road trips with Orlando City give me at least a little bit of a break and send me somewhere cooler here and there. I know I'm going to Montreal next month. And hey, just a warning, you're going to have a new listener on Sirius today. Adrian Heath was telling me yesterday he got a new car. It's got Sirius in the car, and he wanted to know what channel your show was on.
So much pressure
today. It sounds like he'll tune in.
So much pressure. Well, he missed your. We'll get you on the Sirius show, and then he can listen to you talk about Orlando City. Paul Tenorio from the Orlando Sentinel. Thank you very much, Paul. Talk to you soon.
Thanks so much.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Let's take a break. When we come back, we will open up the phone lines, get your opinion on anything happening in the world of football right now. 646-832-3909. Get in. Be right back. Soccer Morning, WorldSoccerTalk.com.
Welcome back to Soccer Morning on World Soccer Talk with Jason Davis.
Phone lines open 646-832-3909. Soccer Morning Web Edition. Soccer Morning WorldSoccerTalk.com edition. Soccer Morning, what else kind of edition can this be? RSL and LA play tonight. Tuesday night was not good. Tuesday night was not good for soccer. Orlando. That San Jose Houston game, never made that sound on the air before, but that game deserved it. I mean, I'm glad Adam John scored a goal, so at least we had a goal in that game. I don't know what Orlando. I keep doing that. I'm not sure what Houston was attempting to do, tactically speaking. Late in the game, put on David Horst, go to a 3-5-2, try to get those fullbacks up the field. Okay, I get that. Did Giles Barnes have any help whatsoever at the front of that Houston formation? And Dom Kinnear, man, look, I respect the hell out of Dom Kinnear. And I guess it's cool that he went back to Houston and got a win. The man knows how to suck the joy out of a soccer game. Even more so than some of the most famous, practically inclined, regressive soccer coaches we've had in this country. Dom Kinnear knows how to take the joy out of a soccer game. Just sit back, just absorb pressure, get a couple of chances, find a goal on a set piece. Boom, it's over. You've been domed. Houston got domed. Houston, who used to dom people, got domed last night. Didn't make for entertaining soccer. Washington and Trevor both suggest this is OG Soccer Morning right here. The OG show. If you don't know what OG is, you're either really old or just completely out of touch. 646-832-3909. Looks like they're lining up a bit. Talk to you about whatever is on your mind today. Again, RSL hosting LA tonight. Big game for RSL. They got to find some goals, man. You can't just keep saying forever, Joao Plata, Joao Plata, Joao Plata. You can't do that. Oh, also tonight, Canadian Championship match, Montreal-Toronto. Vincent Toronto, what's up?
Can't forget FC Edmonton and Vancouver, Jason.
Oh, is that also on the schedule? Yes, I do see it there. FC Edmonton and the Vancouver Whitecaps in the Canadian Championship. And we've got 5 teams in that tournament now, and something about the two NASL teams play each other. So I'm guessing Edmonton beat Ottawa, right?
Yeah. It's I don't know if you've read Kurt Larson's article, because he did an article on the Toronto Sun about the championship. And it rustled a lot of jimmies, Jason. You have no idea. People were coming left and right attacking Larson over his article, because he basically said the Canadian Championship, or the Voyageurs Cup, which is what it's called,
sure,
doesn't matter, and that it's a waste of time, and that Champions League spots for Canadian teams should be allocated through MLS play and not the Canadian Championship. And guys like Rollins and really came after him, basically saying, you're essentially killing the Canadian Championship. And Larson basically said, well, the championship is never really alive, since it's only 5 teams, and the 3 MLS clubs don't really pay enough attention to it. We already saw Greg Vanney mention that Jovinko, Altidore, Finley, Jackson, these guys won't be playing. That they didn't even make the trip to Montreal, and that he's called up a lot of the TFC2 kids to play. Michael Bradley will be playing because he's Michael Bradley. I mean, TFC could play, friendly in the Amazon jungle, and Michael Bradley would still be playing.
Sure, yeah.
But yeah, and I mean, a lot of people are comparing it to the U.S. Open Cup, and you can't do that because the Open Cup has tons of teams playing in it. And yeah, maybe the MLS clubs don't pay enough attention to the Open Cup, but when they get deeper in the tournament, they typically do. But yeah, it's among the Canadian soccer community, it's currently a hot button issue over what this championship means, because the Voyageurs Cup existed before MLS came to Canada,
sure,
and it's been a staple of Canadian soccer. It's basically our only real competition for Canadians to latch on to.
Let me stop you, Vince.
It's an issue.
Do you think that the tournament needs to be expanded?
Absolutely.
Okay, so how do you do that?
The CSA has
Very
already
briefly
said that they're revisiting the format in 2017, and at that point, I would imagine the League One Ontario teams and the PLSQ teams would be added to the tournament, which would immediately add like another 20 teams to the tournament, which is very important, because at the end of the day, Jason, 5 teams doesn't exactly light my world on fire.
No.
Even though I want to support this tournament as much as I can.
No, I'm with you on that. I mean, like, I'm not going to go as far as Curtis Larson and say that it doesn't have any value, but I do think that at 5 teams, you are kind of stretching, credibility of the tournament. And it's like you said, if the MLS teams aren't taking it seriously, they're not going to send everybody to Montreal, then that certainly doesn't give the tournament. I mean, MLS teams, at least, they may not play their first line starters in the opening round that they enter, but they will be playing, when there's 5 teams left in the tournament or 4 teams left in the tournament, they would be playing some of their best players. So that is kind of a disconnect there. It's definitely worth watching. Appreciate the call, Vince. Appreciate it, man.
You probably didn't take care.
The Voyageurs Cup. I have to call it that. I definitely want to respect the Canadian soccer fans and the people, the Voyageurs supporters group that created the competition. and what they want to call it, the Voyagers Cup. It's like it's got a sponsor to it, used to anyway. I guess Canadian Championship's okay. Guillermo, what's up?
Hey, good morning, man. Hey, I don't know if you heard about this. I was watching Univision Sports yesterday, and I saw Rafael Vaca from former Earthquake who went to Cruz Azul. Mm-hmm. He was on there talking about his experience not being able to participate in the draft and not, thinking that his soccer career wasn't really ever going to start because he was an undocumented alien here in the United States.
Yeah.
And have you heard about this? Does MLS check into that, or how did that work?
That's a good question. I honestly have no idea. I don't know how an undocumented immigrant can be. I don't know. That's a very good question, Guillermo. We'll have to look into that. I mean, we can crowdsource it right here. If you're on Twitter, hit us up at Soccer Morning. Let us know if you have any insight into this. I know a couple of guys who pay attention to some of these issues, listen to this show, writers and the like. Maybe they can give us some insight. That's an interesting story. That Rafael Baca.
Yeah, it really was a personal story, and they had his family, and a satellite link from LA. And he talked about how he hasn't seen them since he left for Mexico about a year and a half ago. He got married. He's not the only one going through that, but because he's a public figure, it just puts a spotlight on that situation. I thought it was fascinating and very brave of him to out himself like that. Because right now he can't come up here. So if Cruz Azul comes to play, he actually doesn't have any paperwork that allows him to cross the border.
Interesting.
So he's really stuck in an awful situation.
Yeah.
But last thing before, I know you have to go. Last night was 3 points for the Earthquakes. I don't see what the problem is.
Okay. I mean, this is coming back to me. We just got done talking about Chelsea and how they won the Premier League title, and I think they were more entertaining than people want to give them credit for.
I mean, it's the same team, right? Houston is the Earthquakes too.
Yeah.
And Kinnear was the coach both races. I mean, it's basically the same team playing against each other. Civil war.
Yeah, that is true. Maybe they should negate each other. Thanks for the call, Guillermo. Maybe they should negate each other, and you're bound to get some ugly soccer. Again, I just, I respect the hell out of Dom Kinnear and what he's done in this league and how successful he's been, taking teams to titles, taking teams to cup finals when nobody really thought they could do that. But at the same time, I want to see different soccer. Bill in Rockland County, what's up?
I'm so glad you just talked about that. I watched that game last night. I watched the first half, and I shut it off. And I woke up this morning and said it had to end 0-0. I don't know how they even scored a goal. That first half was horrible. And you know what it is? Guys like Dom and Bruce, they play within the rules, but the rules have to be tweaked. That LA-New York game last week was horrible. Once they scored that first goal, he shut everybody down.
Well,
he shut down that young kid. The young kid was great, and he shut him down just because they want to hold on to that one.
But that happens everywhere. That happens all over the place, especially with teams playing on the road. Now, maybe because of parity, it happens more often in MLS. And I got Eric Winalda coming on the Sirius show today, a Sirius XM show, and I'm definitely going to ask him what he makes of scoring being down in MLS and how many draws we're getting, how many 0-0s, 0-0s we're getting, because it is troubling if you've got those six. I mean, what I'm saying is that the dynamic of a team going on the road, scoring a goal, and then locking things down happens all the time. But the problem for MLS is that because you're rewarding six teams with playoff spots, because there's parity and everybody, even the best teams are only a little bit above the middle of the pack teams, it becomes more prevalent to do so. And yeah, that's a problem, Bill.
And there it is too. Like here in the States, we tweak our sports all the time. We're competing against one another. We're competing against hockey and baseball and football. And so we tweak them. Baseball tweaks all their sports. They lowered the mound. They made the ball tighter. Basketball. Do you remember when they had four corners? Guys would play four corners and just hold the ball in the point. Yeah. Well, they tweaked the rules. Let's tweak the rules here. Let's start it. In England, they'll watch these games no matter what. It could be 0-0 forever, and they're going to keep watching it. It's the only sport they have. We have too many sports here. People will turn it off and go to another sport if it's not entertaining enough.
Yeah.
Tweak the rules.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be outside of the laws of the game. You can do something in terms of the amount of points given. I mean, they've tried, Bill. They've done that. They did that weird thing where they gave the first tiebreaker in the standings was goals scored, I think. I don't know where things even stand. I don't even know where things stands on tiebreakers anymore. The team with the most wins. That's what it was. The team with the most wins is the tiebreak. But even that has failed to create a situation where teams go for wins on the road. But again, I mean, that's essentially what we're talking about, though, is LA goes on the road to New York, gets a goal, and tries to lock it down, and that's because they're going for the win. But they don't have any incentive to keep going and try to score goals. Again, it's not that it's wrong for Bruce Arena or any other coach in his situation to do it. It's that because MLS is MLS, it happens way too often.
Yeah, and I was thinking, there was two rules, and if I just throw them out to you, then I'll get off because I know you got a lot of people calling in. One was passing the ball back to the keeper. I don't think you should be able to pass the ball back to your keeper. It's such a safety net for defenders. Defenders know that if a forward comes up on him, I'll just pass it back to the keeper.
Yeah.
They do 40-yard passes back to the keeper, and the keeper just punts it up, and it's just a safety net, and it keeps the forward sitting back instead of coming forward because they know it's going to happen.
It was 25 years ago or 20 years ago or so that they got rid of the rule that the keeper could pick the ball up off of backpacks. Thanks for the call, Bill. Now obviously the keeper has to play with the ball at his feet. He can catch a headed ball back to him. I don't know that again, the issue here is that MLS cannot do anything unilaterally, that they have to work within the laws of the game as dictated by FIFA and what's the name of that group? It's all the UK associations and like somebody else. IFAB. They have to work within the rules as dictated by IFAB. I don't want MLS to go off on their own. I don't want them to be different. I don't want shootouts anymore. Eddie in Brooklyn, what's up?
Hey, man, I was just going to say that last caller needs to calm down a little bit. We're talking about changing the laws of the game here.
Yeah,
and it's not that serious.
I'm not for that. We could bring back, remember the Americanized soccer guy? If we really wanted to change the laws of the game, we bring him back.
I'm not about that. I'm not about that life. All you got to do is not make sure that more than half the teams in the league go to the playoffs. And now coaches are thinking, you know what? Just get a couple of draws here and there. We'll be in around August, September, and then we'll really start playing. So we have to be subjected to this garbage for the first 3-4 months of the season.
Yeah. That's I don't know that there's a way around it, short of, as you said, cutting back on the playoff teams. And we all know, and this is definitely a criticism that MLS deserves. Too many of those owners counting on those extra playoff games, the revenue, the ticket sales, and they can't see past their nose. They just can't see past their nose on this issue. You make the regular season matter more, but 4 teams in each. I mean, I'd be okay with that. Go down to 4 teams in each conference. When you get up to 20 teams and you have 4 playoff spots, damn, that'll be some good competition. All right, what else is on your mind, Eddie?
Exactly. Yeah. Everybody's picking on Gareth Bale today, and I want to know why Danny Carvajal isn't getting the blunt of the blame, because I think, Bale pretty much didn't create much. He was playing in the 4-4-2. He was kind of just up there with Cristiano. But I think if you look at that game, what the job that Sergio Ramos did and Danny Carvajal did just wasn't good enough. They made entirely too much mistakes. They gave up the ball in their own half. I think Carvajal did it at least 3 times in the first 20 minutes, and I wanted to go straight Latrell Sprewell on him. And I was surprised that he wasn't taken out. But I don't know why everybody's picking on Bale and not picking on the guys that I really think are responsible, which is Carvajal, and then also Varane. Varane had a horrible game.
Yeah.
But everybody's looking at Bale.
Come back to Varane for just a second. I mean, obviously, a talented player. How old is he now? Is he like 21, 22 years old still?
I think he's 22.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess
don't quote me on that, though.
Well, no, I mean, I can look it up. But, I mean, obviously, he was so highly touted. I mean, I kind of put him almost on the Norwegian kid a little bit. Obviously, that kid was 15 and made an international debut. But, I mean, it just seems like there's a lot of pressure on a center back that young on that stage. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Certainly, but
well, I mean,
go ahead.
No, I mean, he's done really well this season. When Sergio was injured, when Pepe was injured, he stepped in and he's done an amicable job. It's just that I think last night maybe the pressure got to him, and I think you saw with Carvajal why we ended up getting down in Nino, because Carvajal's been entirely too inconsistent since he got here from Bayer Leverkusen. Yeah. I haven't been completely sold on him, and yesterday was just kind of my tipping point. But to go back to Varane, I think he's incredible speed. I don't think there's many forwards who can outrun him, but he can be subjected to like the complete blunder. So when Tevez has that space, he just refuses to close it and just gives Tevez entirely too much time on the ball, takes his shot because he is too old. He can't save it.
Right.
And then Morata just taps it in on that first goal.
Right. Well,
and then, I don't know.
That's the issue with a young defender, though, is what he lacks is the experience to understand where he needs to be when he needs to be there. And he just turned 22, by the way, on April 25th. So he just turned 22. And that stuff will come with time. I mean, the physical gifts, obviously, Varane got that.
Yeah, I mean, I'd expect Sergio Ramos, the experiment with him in the midfield, I'd expect him to go back to center back when we go back to the Bernabeu and probably revert back to the 4-3-3 to try and get that goal. And probably later on in the match, switch back to a 4-4-2, maybe bring on Isco. It's really going to come down to injuries, though, because everybody's talking about, Juve doesn't have Pogba, but they keep forgetting we don't have Modric and we don't have Benzema, and those are two huge injuries. It's like telling Juve, all right, you can't play with Pogba and you can't play with Tevez. Go play.
Right.
I'm like, I understand it's Madrid. We have great players, but there's only so many great players you can lose, and you have to use Band-Aid solutions. And to some point, it is kind of Ancelotti's fault for not playing guys like Asier Mendy, for not playing Querida. You got Lucas Silva for, in the January transfer window. He played a little bit, but you didn't show him enough confidence. And now you're being forced to play Sergio Ramos in midfield. So this is kind of Ancelotti's fault, but I mean, the injuries have just been brutal.
Yeah, no, obviously Real Madrid been hit very, very hard by those. You got the away goal. I mean, that's got to make you feel a little bit better. Real Madrid never wants to lose, even on the road in the Champions League, but scoring the away goal and having it just a 1-goal deficit going back to the Bernabeu, you're fine, Eddie. You're fine.
Yeah, no, we're fine. No, it's better than that time when Jose Mourinho went to Dortmund and got completely outcoached. And we got to go back to the Bernabeu down 4-1 and overrated. It's easy to win anywhere. It's so easy. How come we only won one La Liga title?
Well, okay. Obviously, the guy he likes to talk. He likes to hear himself talk. He's I don't know. I still love him. I know he's wrong about that. It's certainly about La Liga, but I don't know. I'm okay with it. Just say
the dude's philosophy. I can't stand the dude's philosophy. That whole philosophy, like it just win no matter what. That's probably because I'm a Madridista, but that wasn't good enough for us.
All right. Well,
he won a Copa del Rey. He won a La Liga title. He had record points, record goals, but it still wasn't good enough because he just didn't play beautiful soccer.
I think that, Eddie, it's interesting to consider. We don't have time for this, but it's interesting to consider. Obviously the bigger the club, the more money you spend, the higher your profile, the more fans you got, the more pressure there is to play pretty soccer, and that's something that doesn't always. I mean, if you're Chelsea and your history, no offense, Chelsea fans, is relatively short when it comes to being on the top level, you can play Jose Mourinho park the bus soccer, and nobody's really. I mean, the rest of the league will go, "Oh, that's so hideous," but the Chelsea fans will go, "I don't care. I got a title. I got a trophy. I'm good." So that's clearly not the case at a place like Real Madrid.
Yeah, another Club America. Look at El Tuco Mohammed. He got fired and he won it.
Yeah. All right, I got to go, Eddie. Appreciate it, man.
All right,
there you go. Eddie in Brooklyn, good stuff from him. All right, it's going to do it for the web edition of a Wednesday soccer morning. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you to our guests today, David Amoyal and Paul Tenorio. Eddie in Brooklyn's going to hate Mike on Twitter, Thomas19064. Winning trumps all if it's your own team. I don't care if it's ugly or not. Again, I think that there's this push-pull, there's this sort of balance that comes with the nature of the team and how aspirational the team is and how big the team thinks of itself and et cetera, et cetera. We don't have time for that today. Make sure you join us over on Sirius XM FC at 11 o'clock. Just about 49 minutes from now, we'll have a big show over there. Jonathan Tannewald, Eric Winalda, and Daryl Lovell will join us on the program. Should be a good one. We'll take your phone calls as well. Make sure if you're in New York that you come out and say hi on Friday night at the Football Factory. We'll be watching some MLS, drinking some beer, talking some soccer. Trevor Hayward will be there. That's the big draw. Trevor Hayward's going to be there, guys. You get to talk to Trevor in person. All right. Go to backheel.com/store. Buy yourself a Soccer Morning mug. They're very pretty. And Soccer Morning t-shirts at 30fc.com. I got one coming. It's on its way. Excited. Talk to you guys on Sirius and tomorrow. Bye.